Today on Carolina Week, Chapel Hill aces in climate leadership, while North Carolina gets an F in education funding.
Changes coming to campus, new housing, new counselors, and a new professional school.
All this and more next on Carolina Week.
From the UNC Hussman School of Journalism and Media, connecting Carolina's campus and community, this is Carolina Week.
Welcome to Carolina Week. I'm Abigail Whittington.
And I'm Lauren Lovett. And happy first day of Black History Month. Abigail, what does Black history mean to you?
Well, to me, it's about uplifting Black voices in our community. And we actually spoke to some students here to learn what Black History Month means to them.
To me, Black History Month is time once a year where my people are uplifted and people around the country are thinking about what we've come from and the opportunities that we have today.
I think it is a time, I think it's a time to really hone in and really celebrate all of the contributions that Black people have made.
I guess it just represents that most people recognize that we're still here, and even though we're not a big population on campus, we can still we still have a presence here.
Head over to Carroll Hall next week for free pizza with a purpose. The Hussman School is hosting a panel discussion on navigating bias in the internship and job search on Tuesday in the Freedom Forum.
The town of Chapel Hill got an A-list rating from an international environmental nonprofit, the highest awarded by the organization. The Carbon Disclosure Project surveyed more than 1,000 cities worldwide on climate risk assessments, emissions disclosures, aggressive renewable energy targets, and published plans. Only 12% of the cities surveyed were awarded an A rating, including the town of Chapel Hill. Chapel Hill Community Sustainability and Resilience Manager John Richardson credits much of the town's success to the Climate Action and Response Plan, which outlines the plan towards sustainability for the town.
And the focus of that plan is on a variety of action areas that include things like buildings and energy, transportation and land use, water, wastewater, and natural resources, and resiliency. We also have a top goal within that plan to reach net zero emissions by 2050.
Chapel Hill is the only municipality in North Carolina to have received this honor from the CDP. Richardson says it's a sign the town is moving in the right direction towards sustainability.
Late last week, Chancellor Kevin Guskiewicz announced that the Board of Trustees unanimously approved a resolution for a new school of civic life and leadership. Nothing is set in stone, but the announcement already has people talking. Following this story, the CW's Kelly Kendall.
That's right. The Board of Trustees cited a need for a new program that teaches students about public discourse and the open inquiry of ideas. Last week at the meeting, Chairman David Bullock said that this new school might not mean a new building, but rather having it nested within another existing school. Bullock also said that the university needs a space for free speech and multiple political perspectives so that students can learn from one another rather than seeing each other as, quote, foes to vanquish. But this decision has already stirred up a lot of controversy. In a Wall Street editorial, this decision was praised as fighting the, quote, university echo chamber. But in my conversations with students, there have been mixed reactions. Some of this see this as a place for open ideas, while others see this as a means of creating more conflicts than productive conversations. And some others say that they already feel there's outlets for free speech available on campus. We'll bring you more on this story as it develops, but for now, in Chapel Hill, Kelly Kendall, Carolina Week.
UNC's Counseling and Psychological Services, also known as CAPS, is implementing program and school-specific counselors. So far, the expansion includes the School of Media and Journalism and the School of Pharmacy. CAPS had already embedded counselors in the schools of law and medicine in 2020. With the expansion, CAPS's future plans include the School of Public Health and the Biological and Biomedical Sciences programs. The goal? To increase access to mental health resources. We asked some students what they think about the expansion.
Yeah, I think that it makes it a lot more approachable for people to go and ask questions and get help if they need it.
So it would be a lot easier to have somebody in the Hussman School since I do all my classes here.
Yeah, I definitely think it'll be more utilized, especially having someone who specifically understands the needs of pharmacy students.
The Chapel Hill Town Council could be adding more affordable housing if zoning changes are approved. In a public meeting, council members take a look at the town's land use management ordinance to allow more housing options. No mention yet of which neighborhoods could be rezoned.
UNC's campus is more than 230 years old, and its needs for renovations is growing. UNC Housing has undertaken smaller scale renovations in the past few years, but now larger renovations are on the horizon, according to Carolina Housing Leadership. The university's master plan includes a 15-year timeline on campus construction and design. Some plans were delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but now residence halls like Avery are set to undergo major renovations, including HVAC systems, elevators, and new accessible showers, according to the report from the Daily Tar Heel. Construction is scheduled to begin in 2024. Other residence halls like Teague and Parker could even be demolished and replaced by new buildings with additional floors.
The UNC One Card office announced Tuesday a project to install new One Card readers in campus buildings beginning in March. The process will take several months to complete, according to a campus email. You'll know if your One Card is compatible with the new readers by checking the back of your card. If it says HID CIOS on the bottom left corner of the card, you're good to go. But cards marked with caller ID or PROX will need an upgrade. The One Card office is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. on the third floor of the student stores.
Eating disorders affect over 20 million Americans, but among Black women, some say the issue is often invisible. Black women are more likely to suffer from binge eating and bulimia nervosa, which includes binging and finding ways to avoid weight gain. One UNC researcher found that medical providers focus heavily on weight during checkups, which could result in Black women's eating disorders being overlooked. Here's UNC Assistant Professor of the School of Social Work, Rachel Good.
Doctors have already told us that they don't feel comfortable treating individuals with eating disorders. And so I think when it's add race on top of that, they're just really not prepared. So we just hide in plain sight.
Part of Good's research involves hosting interventions to heal people's relationships with eating as a way to bring attention to any eating disorders they may experience without knowing. 4 people were shot and 2 of them died in a shooting in Durham yesterday. Durham police say the 2 others were treated for non-life-threatening injuries. At least 20 people have been shot in Durham since the start of the year, with 96 shootings reported overall.
In that same time frame, there have been 3 shootings in Chapel Hill, 2 of them deadly. What are the new police chief's plans to stop what many are calling an unprecedented uptick in violent crime? Reporter Riley Kennedy has the latest.
In 2022, 5 out of all the 6 shootings in Chapel Hill were deadly. But just a month shy into 2023, Chapel Hill has already had 3. The first happened near Smith Level Road. The second, hours later that same evening on South Estes Drive Extension. And then, number 3, just days later, north of Heritage Creek near Chapel Ridge, a known off-campus housing choice among UNC students. Chapel Hill Police Chief Celisa Lehue says those last 2 shootings, which left 2 men in their 20s dead, were actually connected.
These are not random. These are folks that were affiliated with one another, and we will continue to, provide updates as we investigate them.
Arrests were made in the murders, but some students living near the crime scenes still aren't at ease. Zach Clemens was on the bus heading back to Chapel Ridge when his girlfriend texted him about the shooting.
I was scared. I was worried. I didn't know what was going on. And so I told her to, make sure she stayed in the apartment, don't open the door or anything like that, and that I was going to be headed back.
One of the measures Leahy was taking is increasing police presence in areas near where the shootings happen. She also says that the department's 24-hour crisis unit will be more involved. In Chapel Hill, I'm Riley Kennedy, Carolina Week.
Coming up next, we'll debrief a few of the newest bills in the General Assembly.
Plus, what happens if you find yourself wrongfully convicted in North Carolina?
Find out after the break.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut, the one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink, or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking, now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed, better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead, catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Carolina Week.
I hear there's big news from the White House yesterday, Lauren.
There is. President Joe Biden announced this week he will end COVID-19 national emergencies on May 11th, a little over 3 years since the pandemic was declared in 2020. The move will restructure the current federal response to coronavirus as an endemic public health threat.
Funding for North Carolina public schools ranks among the lowest in the country in a new report. The situation has alarmed teachers and education experts alike. Reporter Pete Villasmeal has the story.
Insufficient, ignored,
Public school funding is personal for Stuart Egan.
desperately needed.
He's a teacher at West Forsyth High School. His reaction to the state's ranking by the Education Law Center?
I'm not surprised by it, but it does sting a little bit more when so much evidence is being given to the contrary of what the policy has been.
North Carolina ranked last in public school funding. The new report examines 3 elements: the state's funding level, funding distribution, and funding effort. Together, they measure how equitable the state's funding is and how committed North Carolina is to education funding. The results have experts sounding the alarm.
And that's going to catch up to us, right? So at some point, the chickens will come home to roost. And I think with these indicators coming from the report, you're starting to see that now.
Activists are calling for an increase in the budget to support increases in teacher pay and per pupil spending. Currently, only 2% of the state's money goes to education funding, lower than any other in the country. Then there's the Leandro Plan, a proposal that would give more equitable funding for school districts in the state. The NC Supreme Court ruled last November that funds must be provided to implement the plan. But while the General Assembly remains in a gridlock, it's hard to tell what'll happen next.
It's run into opposition in the legislature because the Republican majority argues that the courts can't tell the legislature what to spend.
While any potential progress is unclear, education funding will be one of the must-watch issues in this upcoming legislative session. In Chapel Hill, I'm Pete Villasmeal, Carolina Week.
The General Assembly's new legislative session is off to a slow start, with new committees being formed and needing time to review newly introduced bills. Both the House and Senate met in small, so-called skeleton sessions this week, often with only 2 or 3 members present. Although the sessions were not very active, they may indicate what legislators will be keyed in on.
In the House, Minority Leader Robert Reeves introduced a bill that would codify abortion protections. The same bill was introduced in the Senate last week. Every Democrat in the Senate and House signed on to the bill. If passed, the bill would prevent the state from restricting abortion before fetal viability. The bill isn't likely to pass the House or Senate, but signals that Democrats may uphold Governor Cooper's veto on any future abortion bill from Republicans.
A bill that would give a tax credit to volunteer firefighters and rescue workers, and an education omnibus bill that includes an evaluation of school metrics were also introduced in the House this week. On Tuesday, the Senate confirmed Todd Ishii as the new Secretary of the Department of Adult Correction.
Senators also introduced a bill to enact a former bill from 2021, vetoed by Governor Cooper, that would allow for concealed carry in churches that double as schools.
The General Assembly will remain mostly quiet as they settle in for the new session, but in the coming weeks, there will likely be votes on controversial issues like abortion, spending, and the governor's veto.
What happens when a person is wrongfully convicted of a crime in North Carolina? Well, there's an entire state agency dedicated to investigating wrongful conviction claims, paid for by your tax dollars. Here to explain is Carolina Week's Stephen Schlink.
North Carolina is the only state with an independent agency that looks into wrongful conviction claims. The Innocence Inquiry Commission was established in 2006, but after nearly 20 years and thousands of cases, does it live up to its intended purpose?
Right now, we have an organization that has no oversight, amazing authority, and no transparency. That is a terrible mix in government for any agency.
That's Christine Mumo, one of the founding members of the Innocence Inquiry Commission. In hindsight, she says there are some changes she'd make.
Looking back, we probably should have pushed for open file discovery first.
Open file discovery became law in North Carolina in 2009. It ensures both the defense and the prosecution know the same information about a case. but it doesn't apply to the Innocence Inquiry Commission, possibly giving the agency's attorneys a leg up.
The defense attorney in this case shouldn't be left with less information than they would have under open file discovery in current cases. I mean, just it doesn't make any sense.
In a list of transparency concerns with the IIC, this is just a single one, and it keeps growing.
We added a section that says after its informal inquiry, you have to give the defense and the prosecution updates every 6 months.
But that doesn't always happen.
There were some cases where we weren't hearing from the commission for 5, 6, 7 years.
Normally, a case moves into formal inquiry before any DNA testing is done or interviews conducted. But a case can't move into formal inquiry until the victim is notified. The IIC, according to MUMA, is testing and interviews are happening prior to informing the victim. According to statute, a case doesn't have to be in formal inquiry for these things to take place. However, the statute does require that the defense be given an update every 6 months after a case goes into formal inquiry. In essence, MUMA's argument is that the IIC delays notifying the victim so they can avoid having to remain in contact with the defense. Until 2015, the commission issued memorandums to defense disclosing what measures were taken and why a case had been closed, but not in recent years.
Returning to that memorandum would create better communication and a feeling of full transparency.
Another issue is that the IIC has not been keen on public discussion of these discrepancies, says MUMA.
It's a good thing, and it can be made a lot better. And so why wouldn't we make it a lot better if we can?
I think good old-fashioned communication over a lunch, sitting and talking and hearing, I think would alleviate a number of concerns.
Regardless of its shortcomings, Glazier remains proud of what the commission means.
This remains one of the most innovative institutions to achieve justice in the United States.
We reached out to IIC leaders for comment and provided a list of questions. They responded by stating that they won't be able to review our request until a later date, and we will update you at that time.
Last week, reporter Julia Roth introduced us to UNC sophomore Rachel Kivlin and her family in Ukraine. This week, their story continues in America.
Since last February, families in Ukraine have sought refuge from the threat of Russian attack. Previously, we introduced you to one of those families who has found safety with the help of a UNC student.
Rachel Kivlin is 19 years old, a UNC student, a dancer, but this year her role as a cousin took priority when war broke out in Ukraine.
I just remember my mom just saying that we're living in a nightmare. And that was basically just all that she was saying. And she was just heartbroken.
Rachel also works part-time to help her family with the financial burdens of tuition, 3 children, and now 3 new members of their family needing a new home and a completely new life.
Where the hell are they going to live? Like, how the hell am I going to pay for their housing? You know, how are they not going to starve here? They were starving over there. They had no money for food. How am I going to ensure that they get food here?
In June, Victoria, Marie, and Alex arrived in Charlotte, where Rachel and her family had found a rental home for the trio. Victoria compared the arrival to something out of the Jungle Book.
Little Mowgli going into the jungles, when he knows nothing, and that's how she felt when she was coming in the United States. And what the amount of welcoming was so much more than she expected.
Yeah. We've always had a big American flag and a big Ukrainian flag, and that greeted them when they came here. And I remember my cousin Sasha looking at me and saying in Russian, everything in America is just so much brighter. There's actually life in the air. Those were his exact words. A 14-year-old boy saying that. I'll never forget that moment.
And I had a really good job in my country. I had many friends.
Their homeland just absolutely disintegrated.
And when I stay here, I want to work because I have not good English, and I study English every day. Because when I was in Ukraine, I was a leader of meetings. And it's my job, and I can't do something my hand. I only speak, only talk.
Yeah.
And I like it.
So she has two educations, two degrees, one in
Economist and lawyer.
Even though they're now halfway around the globe, their minds are never far from home, where Marie's and Alex's dad still remains. During our interview, Victoria received the news that the Ukrainian town of Kherson had been liberated.
All people say hurrah. I so cry because it's our people. Yeah. I want to show you. Okay. They sing our hymn.
the anthem, the national anthem.
I don't want with this situation will in future in other country.
We got the immediate family that was in danger, out of danger, but I mean, this is just the beginning, honestly.
He's here too. In Chapel Hill, North Carolina, I'm Julia Fairchild Roth reporting.
Well, that's a story that'll cheer anyone up on a gloomy Wednesday like today.
Yeah, you're totally right, Lauren. In fact, let's talk to our CW meteorologist, Corey Kowitz, to see if the sun's coming out anytime soon.
Yeah, guys, the story for today is cold and dreary, but yesterday, a little bit of a different story. You could see here in the RDU region in the high 50s, just south of town, in the low 60s, but today a massive cool down here. You can see in our temperature map down in the mid to low 40s, about a 15-degree temperature drop, really reflecting in the RDU region in terms of how big of the temperature difference we have seen. That's reflected here in our class-by-class forecast, remaining cold and dreary. Those rains start to taper off just around now, around noon, and we'll see it dry up but not quite clear. Cloud cover remaining here in the afternoon and evening hours. Dreary conditions. When is that going to end? Not going to end quite yet. You're going to see our rain chances return tomorrow. It's going to be our main rain event. You could see here about all of the rain that we have seen here, about an inch of rain here in the RDU region. That's accounting for the rain that we've seen already this week and that we're going to see projected for tomorrow here. And timing it out here, the rain, you could see that it's going to come in here around in the morning hours. It's going to remain throughout the day. It's going to come in through bands. It's going to surge in through, and we're going to see a lot of rain here. And the rainy pattern we seem to be stuck in will clear out by the end of the week on our 5-day forecast. You can see the rainy conditions, the dreary conditions are going to be today and tomorrow, but clearing out, but remaining cold for the end of the week on your Friday and Saturday, with the coldest day of the week being on Saturday. Might not even crack 40, and the coldest temperatures being Saturday morning. So if you have any plans Saturday morning, make sure to be prepared and bundle up. It's going to be chilly. Our coldest chill might get below 20, the coldest chill we've seen since that cold snap we had in late December. Sunday, we see the cloud cover returning and getting a little warmer. But stick around for the latest in UNC sports after this.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Two milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
If you're looking for somewhere to watch the Duke UNC game this weekend, you might be out of luck.
Many Carolina alums will tell you there's nothing better than watching Duke lose, except rushing Franklin Street after a big Tar Heel win. With space in high demand, several restaurants around Franklin Street are letting students reserve tables for the game on Saturday. Sup Dogs is starting reservations today at 3 p.m., but only in person. Your seat will cost you $10 and expect to spend at least another $20, the spending minimum for the evening.
Other than rivalry games, what should we be looking out for in Carolina athletics?
Well, let's hand it over to our Sports Extra anchor, Joshua Dolgoff, to find out.
Thanks, Abigail. Back like she never left. Four-time national champion Aaron Matson is your new UNC field hockey head coach, taking over for the legendary Karen Shelton. Matson graduated in the fall of 2022, just after the team's undefeated national championship run. At the age of 22, Matson is just a bit younger than Shelton was at the start of her tenure. To replace the winningest coach in field hockey history, It's only fitting that it's the most decorated player ever in program history taking over. For more about this monumental news, let's go to field hockey analyst Caroline Yaffa.
Joshua, it's almost like Erin is following her mentor's footsteps, and the similarities are unbelievable. Shelton took over the program when she was 23. She had 4 national championships, won the Honda Award as the nation's most outstanding player in field hockey 3 times, and played on Team USA for 8 years. Matson is now currently 22 years old. That means she's the youngest head coach in Division I history for any sport. She has 4 natties, 3 Honda Awards, and is currently on Team USA. We'll soon see if she continues to wear red, white, and blue. The similarities of both of them is jarring, but their bond is truly something special. During the interview for our field hockey documentary called Play Today, Coach Shelton said that she wanted to do what's best for Carolina field hockey, and she left it in the hands of the greatest field hockey player of all time, the new head coach, Erin Matson. I'll sit down with the new coach tomorrow morning to discuss this historic moment for Carolina field hockey. We'll have that for you on Friday's edition of Sports Extra. Joshua?
Thanks, Caroline. Let's hope those similarities continue when it comes to winning championships. Freshman Paulina Paris has made a splash on the women's basketball team this year. Paris is the ACC Rookie of the Week after averaging 13.5 points last week against Pitt and Clemson. Paris stepped up on the road against Clemson and scored a career-high 22 points against the Tigers, including 6 three-pointers. The New Yorker usually comes off the bench for the Heels, but on Sunday she was given her first start and proved that Coach Courtney Banghart made the right choice to include her in the starting lineup. Paris will continue to play an integral role for the 11th-ranked Heels as they look to continue their win streak. The UNC cross-country teams were awarded all academic by the U.S. Track and Field and Cross Country Coaches Association. Both the men and women have cumulative GPAs of better than 3.0. 7 Tar Heels individually earned the distinction as NCAA D1 all-academic athletes with GPAs higher than 3.25. ACC Runner of the Year Parker Wolf is among the honorees. The Tar Heels look to acquire more accolades as the ACC announces its cross-country academic awards this week. After a 9-5 campaign, the UNC football team is ready to get back to work. The 2023 season will open in Charlotte against South Carolina. The first home game will be against App State. Then the team will play 5 ACC opponents before a home stretch, including Campbell University, and ending with Senior Day against Duke, hoping to keep the victory bell at home once again. The Tar Heels will end the season on the road against 2 tough opponents, Clemson and NC State. Carolina basketball is back in the Dean Dome tonight to get their revenge on Pitt, but that's not the game on our minds because it is Beat Duke week. Tune into Sports Extra on Friday as we preview the rivalry matchup that hopefully leads to another storming of Franklin Street. We'll be back after this.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping, and I can't let this happen to my kid. So if you want to talk to your kids, you have to get it trending.
No, you're doing it wrong.
Let's go.
Can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
Lauren, do you remember your favorite teacher from high school?
Unfortunately, I don't, but there's a teacher in Carrboro that's been getting a lot of love lately.
Just last year, Emily Jardina started teaching fashion design at Carrboro High School. Now she's a finalist for the 2023 NC Beginning Teacher of the Year Award. Jardina worked in New York's fashion industry for 15 years until she was laid off during the coronavirus pandemic. Now she's teaching the next generation of fashion designers. Jardina's classes cover every stage of the design process, from concept to finished product. Her students nominated her for the award, but Jardina said she's surprised she's even a finalist.
Well, awards are weird. I don't think I've ever won awards before this, you know? But I felt really good because I do try really hard. You know, you put a lot of work in, and it's nice that that's noticed.
The winner and runner-up will be announced on March 9th.
You know what? I actually do remember my favorite teacher, and she's the one who got me into journalism in the first place.
Oh, how sweet is that? I love it so much.
Thanks for watching this week's edition of Carolina Week. I'm Lauren Lovett.
And I'm Abigail Whittington. We will see you next week.